Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Keith Barnes. I'm the Basileus for Theta Pi chapter, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated here in Vallejo, California. And I am just excited to share with everyone here today a series that we've started in Theta Pi as of last year to celebrate our stalwart warriors and heroes in the 12th district. This year, we have chosen to celebrate the life and legacy honoring our 32nd Grand Basileus brother, L. Benjamin Livingston Jr. We have a very distinguished panel tonight that's going to bring you all the sides of Brother Livingston, his life as a fraternity man, family man, and it's going to be a fun night. It's going to be very informal. We do have a presentation that we'll use throughout, but I just want everyone to sit back, learn, engross yourself with all the great information we're going to share tonight. So Brother Thompson, if you don't mind, first slide.
I did it again.
Well, folks, technology is doing its thing. Next one also. All right. To keep things moving along, this is pretty much the agenda we're going to follow. We may deviate a bit throughout, but that's the one we're going to follow. We're going to talk about Brother Livingston as a fraternity member, a father, service and community, friend and reflections. But before we do all of that, what I want to do first is I'm going to introduce the panel we have with us tonight. Again, starting with myself, again, Keith Barnes, 2 Iota Theta, 1982, 8th District, a little school called Tarkio College. You can look it up later. Most folks have never heard of it. Life member 3378. Next, I'll turn it over to our Grand Officer who's on, Brother Lewis.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Certainly appreciate you, Brother Barnes. Good evening, brother. Brother Ricky Lewis, 1 New Mu, 1981, University of the Pacific, Stockton, California. Now a member of Tall chapter in Compton, California.
Brother Dow.
Brother Kwame Dow, 52093, Beta chapter, 34th District Representative of the Massive and Progressive 12th District. Glad to be here this evening.
Thank you, Brother Dow. Brother Isles, I'm gonna hold Brother Isles if you don't mind to introduce yourself.
Brother Mark Isles, spring, actually April 20th, 1979, Mu Kappa chapter, San Luis Obispo, California. Served as the 28th Second Vice Grand Basileus under the tutelage of L. Benjamin Livingston.
Thank you, Brother Isles. Brother Johnson from my chapter, Theta Pi.
Brother Joseph Johnson, Theta Pi, September 73. Next year will be my 50th year in Omega, having been financial every single year since I came in.
All right.
Yeah, I'm proud to be here tonight to talk about this good brother. He and I had a lot of good times.
Thank
you. I view him as an advisor of mine, and I'll shut up right down and wait and give it back to you, Keith.
All right, thank you, Brother Johnson. Brother Hill.
Brother Ronan Hill, 1 Phi Lambda 80 out of Cal State Fullerton, currently financial with Tall chapter.
All right. And this is, I'm not gonna say last but not least, but we're waiting on one brother, but I'm gonna turn it over to Brother Livingston's son, Brother Lawrence. Go ahead.
Good evening, Brother Lawrence Livingston, 8/9/1980, Sigma Eta chapter at the University of California, Riverside. Then went on to start Omicron Mu chapter at Weber State College in Ogden, Utah, and presently part of the graduate chapter in Jackson, Tennessee.
All right, thank you, Brother Livingston. And we're also awaiting the arrival of his older brother, Brother Harvey Livingston also. So we're going to keep moving along. And thank you, brothers, for the introduction. Nick, if you don't mind, put the presentation back up. Back to the screen share, Nick. You there, Brother Thompson? I don't know if we lost one. Oh, there we go. All right. What we're going to start with once we're ready is we're going to go into
Brother Barnes,
yes, sir.
we got Brother Livingston in now. You want him to?
Oh, brother Harvey in? Oh, there he is. Hey, Harvey, introduce yourself.
Hey, good evening, brothers. Brother Harvey Livingston, 62478 Pi Road chapter in Riverside, California. Current member of Epsilon Xi chapter in Sacramento, California. And obviously very honored to be here and thank the brothers for this presentation and discussion and legacy of my father and our 32nd Grand Basileus.
Thank you, Brother Harvey. Good to see you. Glad you made it. All right. All right, next slide. So let's talk about how it began. He was initiated, Brother Livingston, in 1951 in the Phi Psi chapter at Langston University. You can see he was a Dean of Pledges the following year, 1952-53, Vice Basileus in 1954. And I put here a detached brother, United States Army, Germany, 1954-56, and then transferred to the University of Arizona. Brother Harvey and Brother Lawrence, let me ask, was he, I saw this and my first thought was he drafted to go to Germany, or how did Germany come into play here?
Yeah, appreciate the question, Brother Barnes. He actually was drafted. He was, my father came from a very humble background, very humble beginnings. And when he was at Langston, he was a basketball player, but he also had to work to help pay his tuition. And one semester he had to sit out a semester to try to raise more funds to continue his education. And as you guys probably imagine, during that time, particularly if you attended a HBCU and you dropped out for a semester, they sent your name forward to the draft board. And so he was drafted into the Army and served during the Korean War and served over in Germany. And then upon doing his time there, reinitiated his education.
Awesome, awesome. I've been waiting to ask that question for about 3 days now. I said, I know it's there. I said, oh, that's good. I knew there was an answer to it. And my first thought was a draft also. That's good to know. And then he transferred to the University of Arizona.
Yeah, he did. You know, our family, believe it or not, you know, you hear about terms like migrant farm workers. And my father was a migrant farm worker. So starting at about the age of 12 or 13, they would send trucks into the Oklahoma territory, and they would take a bunch of young Black men, but let's be candid, there are many cases they were boys, and they would drive out to Arizona and work the entire summer in the watermelon fields.
Wow.
So my father and his brothers did that from about age 12 to 18. Then he started at Langston, and while he was at Langston, his family moved permanently to Arizona. So once he was discharged from the Army, he moved to Arizona and joined the rest of his siblings and his mother and father in the state of Arizona.
Oh, that's awesome to know. Thank you for that. Hey, Nick, next slide, please. And I labeled this one graduate because just like our Brother Harvey said, I moved to Arizona, joined the Phi Iota chapter in Phoenix. He was there 1963 to 66 and in 1970. This, as you can see, was the bosses of the chapter. Then, if I didn't state it, you can begin to see at the leadership track he took at a young age. You know, when you look at, Boston in 1963, once again, the Dean of Pledges, just like he was at Langston, within 4 years after being a couple years after being Boston, he ran for the first vice district representative and made it. He was the keeper of peace for 2 grand conclaves during this time. And then became the Boston of Pi Road chapter in 72, 74, and in 79. And again, Brother Brother Lawrence or Brother Harvey, again, help us again tie the pieces together as to how he got to California.
Well, I can start with that. We grew up in Phoenix, and of course, education has always been a big part of my dad's legacy. And so after he got his doctorate from Arizona State University, when I was about 10, it seemed like we were going to move to San Diego, California, because he had a position with the University of California at San Diego. All excited about San Diego, but something happened and we ended up at the University of California at Riverside. So we moved there in 1971, where that was the beginning of our time in California.
Yeah, let me add, Lawrence is absolutely right. And being a little bit older, I have a little different, not a different view, but another layer of it. So he's absolutely right. So when my father, while he was in Arizona, he was a school teacher. So after he graduated from University of Arizona, he was a school teacher. Many people probably don't know, he actually taught on an Indian reservation, White River Reservation up in northern Arizona. So he was actually a music teacher for the indigenous people on that reservation, and then moved to Phoenix to become a school teacher at a predominantly Black junior high, Booker T. Washington Junior High. And as he was doing his school teaching, believe it or not, in the afternoons after school got out, he'd still go pitch watermelon. So when we were young, he was still trying to stack a few dollars to help the family. He'd go pitch watermelons. And then he decided to go and get his master's and PhD in psychology at Arizona State. And as Lawrence said, once he graduated, he had 3 job offers. One was at Princeton University, and he turned that job down because he's not a cold weather man. He did not want to live in the cold in New Jersey. His next job opportunity was at UC San Diego, just like Lawrence said. And I have to admit, when I was younger, I used to tease my father, like, why did we not go to San Diego by the beach? Why would you pick Riverside over San Diego? But the reason he picked Riverside, quite candidly, was because of his commitment to the community and a commitment to his family. La Jolla obviously is not as diverse as Riverside, and he wanted us as children to be in a more diverse educational background. In addition, North High School, where we all went in Riverside, California, had a Black principal, the first Black principal of the Riverside Unified School District. And that principal, Harold Jackson, was actually a classmate of my father's younger brother, Harvey Livingston, who I was named after. So he was classmates of my father's younger brother in Mesa, Arizona. So he purposely wanted to move to Riverside to be in a more diverse, i.e. higher Black population. And he absolutely insisted that we attended North so that we could be under the tutelage of a Black principal. So that's how we came to Riverside.
Awesome.
I do remember that when we first got there, I think Harvey and I were always looking for the river in Riverside. Never did find the river in Riverside, California.
I see we also have a question from Brian Spencer. Go ahead, Brian. You need to unmute. Brian Spencer. Okay. All right, we're gonna keep. We'll keep moving. So he had his hand up. Maybe it was an accident.
Hey, Brother Keith, can I add one thing about
Absolutely, sir. Yeah.
The Phi Iota chapter in the Phoenix days, as well as the early days at Pi Rho chapter. And again, I want to pay honor to our first Vice Grand Basileus for being on here tonight and joining. Thank you very much, Brother Lewis. You've always been a committed and fully energized Omega man, and we're all very proud of you. I will tell you that even as a young child growing up, I was just astonished at how much traveling my father did on behalf of the fraternity. There's just, my mother used to tell this story about this great violinist named Isaac Stern, who, after giving a concert, a woman came up to him and said, your violin playing is unbelievable. I'd give my life to play like you. And he said, lady, I did give my life. And I tell that story because as a child growing up in the house with Dr. Livingston, he gave his life to Omega Psi Phi. He clearly was a well-rounded man. He belonged to the JCs. He belonged to the Cowboy Choral in Phoenix and traveled the country and frankly internationally singing. He always played Santa Claus when we were young for the JCs. He was an optimist. He was an NAACP member. I could go on a lot of that stuff. But at the end of the day, even as a young child, part of my memory of growing up is we were always taking him to the airport. He was always flying. Long before he was a district officer or long before he was a national officer, even when he was like a Basileus, he would attend district meetings, in the 6th district and back in his home district of the 9th district. And, I remember being 5, 6, 7, we'd take him to the Phoenix airport and I'd be like, where's he going? And mom said, he's going to an Omega conference. And, we would go to Omega conferences as we were growing up as well. So he spent quite a bit of his own time, obviously, but quite a bit of his own dollars traveling the country because I don't think he's ever happier than when he dwelled within the brotherhood of Omega.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. Next slide, Nick. Again, some of the things we've already talked about, he was a district representative, 74, 77, member of the Supreme Council, began at that time until its first vice Grand Boss was 79 to 1982, and he was elected Grand Boss in 1982. I think we know that. Go to the next slide. It was again just to kind of capture some more of the Omega history and accolades. 12th District Citizen of the Year, 1965. District Omega Man of the Year, 67, 76, 70, 77. And you look at that life member number, I could only dream about having life member number 229. I'm a few thousand away from that, number, so it's good. Next slide, Nick. I put this one on here, Brother Harvey and everyone, because just like you were talking about how well-rounded he was, I read this and I was just blown away and just totally fascinated with all the layers, like you said. Look at not just the fraternal stuff, that some of it we've covered, the professional experience, we talked about the well-roundedness of it, the professional and civic affiliation, some of the things you talk about. And I want that on the screen so folks can just take a moment and just read some of these things just to show you how big and audacious this Brother Livingston was with like all the things he participated in. Most folks can only do a few things well. He did a lot of things exceedingly well, and I think this is evident of it. And by the way, brothers, this is him campaigning for the Grand Basileus. This is the resume that he put out there when he was running for Grand Basileus, and a very impressive one at that. So I'll pause and shut up for a second and let folks take a chance to kind of take an opportunity to read some of this. I know some are saying that's only about 15 seconds. That's the most you can shut up, Brother Barnes. but we can always, if you want to come back and talk about this, we can, but to keep it moving. But again, I put this up there to just really kind of show the depth and breadth of Brother Livingston and his fraternity, professional life. And this is, like I said, when he ran for Grand Basileus, it was, I would have, given $1 million to see what the other resumes look like. I don't know how tough the race was back in 1982. I was just coming in myself, and I didn't make it to Miami that year. But like I said, with the brothers I spoke with, he's my Grand Basileus. Go to the next slide, Nick. one of the things at this point, I want to open it up for all of the panelists, because these are some of the angles I want to really explore. I think Brother Harvey and Lawrence, you've talked about the brother-father relationships. You could also share some things about, once you became Omegas and he was an Omega, what was that like? I want to, Brother Isles, I talked to you. I wanted to hear about what it was like to be the second Vice Grand Basileus while he was the Grand Basileus. Brother Johnson, I know we talked about, him being a friend and mentor. I got that there for you, and I didn't think Brother Wilson made it. I wanted to talk about him from a friend standpoint. He's not here, but hopefully he's feeling better. He was a little under earlier today. So what I'll do is I'll open up to Brother Harvey and Lawrence again. Keep wanting to call you Livingston, but Harvey and Lawrence again to just really talk about just your father as a frat brother.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Can I make one other comment before
Sure.
that? You were talking about my father's accomplishments. I think one of the things that's just phenomenal about our organization and the legacy of our organization is it is just littered with men like him, not only in the 12th, but across the country.
Yeah.
I know as a child, when we would go to events and he would introduce us, even during the segregated times of the early 60s, he was always introducing, this is Dr. So-and-so, he's a dentist. This is so-and-so, he's an attorney. This is so-and-so, he's a teacher. This is so-and-so. It was, our roster of people within are very impressive. And I know one of his Phi Psi fraternity brothers, Nathan Hare, who is one of the most preeminent Black psychiatrists in the country. They went to Langston together from that very small town. So I just think all of us have a legacy to be proud of, because I think my father had a very impressive resume, and to me, he was a giant. But at the end of the day, I can't even fathom or express how many giants I've met because of the fraternity and because of my father, of men who some people may think they're ordinary, but the reality is they are extraordinary men who have done phenomenal things for their families and for their communities and for our culture. And so, in that sense, he was special, but he was one of many, many, many special brothers that have wore the purple and gold.
That's a great point. And that's what we've always, looked for, and Omega's tried to always have a cadre of giants. Hey, before I get to Brother Isles, Nick, I want you to play the short video that Brother Lawrence shared with us. I want to play that right now, if you can. We got a question, and I got a hand raised. There was a question, how many states made up the 12th during Brother Livingston's tenure? That's a good question. I honestly don't know. Brother First Vice Grand, Brother Dow,
I think we've been 12, Brother Lewis. I think we've been 10 states for a while. I don't know. Livingston served, I think, was in the 70s, but I think we've been 10 states for a while. Brother Eric Earl.
Yeah, Brother Earl. I think that's right, because I don't ever remember any conclaves where we've done any redistricting with the states or anything anytime from my memory. Brother Johnson, you know of anything? I know you've been also. Yeah. I think there was also, Nick, let me know when you're ready to play the video. There was also a question. I think it was from hand raised. I think it was Brother Holbert. Is the hand still raised? Oh, he put it down. Okay. All right. But we got a short video we want to share with you.
And before we show the video, let me just echo what Harvey was saying. Growing up as the son of a Q was just amazing, because we met all of those giants and successful Black men, and yet they were the most down-to-earth, humble men that you could ever be around. It was just unbelievable. You'd go to softball games, different events, barbecues, and the people that you would meet was just unbelievable. So certainly modeled Omega Psi Phi, and it was something that growing up, both of us wanted to do even before we got to the college age.
Awesome. Well, while we're waiting on the video, Brother Isles, I'm gonna bring you in. I know you're out and about, and thank you for taking the time to participate. You have a unique perspective. You were the second vice Grand Basileus during that time.
That's correct. That's correct. I was I served under Brother Livingston as his second vice Grand Basileus. In fact, that's not where my introduction to the Livingston family began, though. My introduction to the Livingston family on the fraternal level began in Las Vegas, where Harvey and I ran against one another for second vice district representative for the 12th district. And I lost to Harvey by 2 votes. I think either 1 or 2 votes. I don't know, Harvey, if you remember that. I do remember that my 2 or 3 winning votes was at the crab tables playing crab. Big Ben never told me if my response to losing to Harvey is why he took to me so much. I do know that he adopted me. And if it wasn't for him, I never would have been elected to the Supreme Council. It was Ben Livingston and Lee Willis from your home district, the 8th district. Wasn't Lee from the 8th district?
Yeah.
Yes. And I showed up. I showed up in Miami at that conclave, running for national office without the support of the 12th district. The 12th district voted against me. And
Wow.
Brother Livingston and Lee Willis made sure that that I won it without the support of the 12th district. And I gave Ben, and I say Ben affectionately, I gave him hell the entire time I was on the Supreme Council. I challenged him, he challenged me, but every time it came down to the nitty gritty, when he needed me to be there with that vote, he always got my vote.
Yeah.
So, you know, in Kansas City, I don't know if you remember the big brawl in Kansas City about dropping the bulldog as a mascot and taking the ego on.
Yep.
I never found out where that movement came from. I always suspected it came out of the 10th district with John Epps and his anti-undergraduate movement that was very prominent back in the day. But as we moved through that process, and it was very contentious, and the undergrads were heated. They were very angry with me because I was not addressing the issue at all.
Right.
And the reason why I didn't address the issue at all is because in the conversation with the Grand Basileus, L. Benjamin Livingston, he reminded me that if you do not discuss things, if you have not first discussed something in the undergraduate caucus, it cannot come to the floor. So I just simply refused to even address the issue of dropping the dog as a mascot and taking on the ego, because I knew that the next day or later on that day in the plenary session, when the Grand Basileus turned to me and asked me if we had to, and Brother Livingston did, he turned to me and he said, "Did you guys discuss this in the caucus?" And I said, "No, we didn't." And that was that. And,
Wow.
and the issue dropped and it never came back.
That's some wonderful insight.
Another thing that I remember most about L. Benjamin Livingston and his support of me is that, first of all, it always amazed me that I maintained his support as much as I pushed him. I mean, and as much as I challenged him. And when the year that I appeared on as a solo on the Oracle, cover of the Oracle, I submitted a report, or I submitted a write-up that included myself and the 3 undergraduate intermediates. There was supposed to be 4 of us on that cover. And when it came out, I was surprised that I was the only one on there. I did not make that. I found out later that the Grand Basileus made the decision that I was going to appear on the cover of the Oracle solely. And it really blew my mind, because I didn't expect that level of support, and some could even argue I didn't even deserve it, because frankly, I mean, literally, I gave the Grand Boss a hard time, man. I pressed him as hard as I could, because I'm extremely, then I was extremely pro undergraduate, and I'm still that way right now. I think the average age today is what, over 50? We've taken this away from the youth in America, and as Harvey has already outlined to you, this organization is an incubator for developing young leaders in this country, particularly young Black men. And I think those of us that are 50, 60 and older, we are an impediment to the development of that demographic of Black men in this country, and we need to get his organization back to it.
Great point. And thank you for sharing. I think the video is ready. We'll take you down memory lane real quick. We'll share the video real quick. Like, who's that guy?
There's a young Mark Isles.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Hey, Nick, we don't have the sound.
It looked like I was talking about.
Yeah, you look like you were talking. You had the right words. You were dressed sharp.
Black Greek letter organization ever to be founded in the entire state of Utah. I didn't realize any of us lived in Utah. And we have my brothers from my district, the 12th district, and the Rocky Mountain Qs. Omicron Mu at 176 points, second place.
Well, I would just like to say that I'd like to give thanks to all my brothers out there in Weber State College. We took on an awesome task trying to establish something in the state of Utah. And I also like to thank them because as this is my father's last conclave as the Grand Basileus, this was my last conclave as an undergraduate brother, and this is fitting in for it. Thank you very much.
All right.
Lawrence Livingston is my name. Thank you.
All right, Lawrence.
Was it that awesome or what?
Yeah.
Brings back memories, Brother Isles. Brings back
It was a
memories.
good time. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah,
We
that was
had a
great.
good time, a lot of good laughs.
You
Yeah.
sure did.
All right,
And
thank you.
one of the things that I loved about that conclave was it was really important. The 12th district didn't have a great history of sending teams to the step show, but because of the leadership of Harvey and Brother Isles, the 12th district started investing. I think it was $1,000 that they invested to make sure the step team got to the Grand Conclave.
Nice.
So we had a plan as Omicron Mu because the district meeting was in Portland, Oregon that year.
Mhm.
Usually, if it's in California, most of the California chapters are there, but to get all the way up to Portland. So I remember it was three of us brothers drove all night long in beat up Volkswagen to get to Portland to win the district step show and then to get to that conclave. But we made sure that every single brother that stepped, we brought 6 brothers to that conclave, and we were all registered so that
Absolutely.
we weren't just there to step, but we were there to do the business of Omega.
And you guys came in second place, right?
Came in second place by 2 points to New Side Chapter, Virginia
New Side.
State. And
Yeah.
I think we kind of shocked them because at the beginning, you can hear them calling us the Mormon brothers. But as the show went along, I think we kind of got the brothers on our side.
The Mormon brothers. I never heard that. Hey, thank you, Brother Lawrence. And I thank you also, Brother Isles. Hey, Brother Johnson, I do want to bring you in, as one of the senior brothers on here, share with us, your experiences with Brother Livingston. You're on mute, Brother Johnson. There you go.
Well, my experience with this distinguished brother was deep and broad. I want to just give recognition to my good friend, the next Grand Basileus, Brother Ricky Lawrence Lewis, and also my DR, Brother Kwame Dow, and to the radical Mark Owls. I need to tell you this, move on. I was Basileus, and Fillmore Graham was the undergrad advisor in the late 70s. And he asked me if we could take a bus trip, we can get a bus, down to San Luis Obispo to help these brothers put on their Achievement Week program. And that was a wonderful experience. We got into my good brother Willie Atkins' motorhome, about 10 or 12 of us, and we trekked down to San Luis Obispo on a weekend where I met some distinguished young brothers. Dennis Martinez, the former district representative and member of this chapter, as well as Brother Mark Isles. Are you still a registered Republican? Because I quit him. But I'll move on.
I'm still a registered Republican. Yes, I am, Brother Johnson.
Okay, we'll talk offline. Harvey and Fillmore had a very close relationship, as I did with Brother Graham. He actually considered him to be my best friend and my mentor. And Fillmore, I used to cringe at some of the things he would do when we were at district meetings and conclave with Harvey. Harvey is not a tiny guy. L. Benjamin is about. And so Fillmore said, "Hey, Joe, how many buttons will he break today?" even when Harvey would visit the area here, our conversation involved the buttons, and eventually he dropped quite a few pounds, and that was a good healthy thing that he did. But we always would engage ourselves with banter like that. But I will tell you that, to be on the serious side, I met him at a time when I was a district sales manager for Travelers Insurance Corporation out of Walnut Creek, and I had 40 white boys under me. And no blacks, no Hispanics, no nothing, but just a little black boy in charge. And later I was to make a transition from that after retiring, and I looked at Ben's resume, and we would talk often, and I see that he had a PhD in psychology. And I said, I need to get one of those. But I got my teacher's credential first, and then I said, that's not enough. I went back and got my master's in education, master's in counseling, and then I got the real master's degree, the master's in psychology. and I got that because of Ben. I knew that he had gotten that, but I didn't want any PhD. I didn't need that. But I did that because I became a high school teacher, starting off at juvenile hall in San Mateo County. And if you know anything about these kids, they're wayward kids, undisciplined, with no direction. I figured I needed that to get into their heads. And boy, that was very helpful, because I ever since then, I've been a different dude in figuring out people and why they do the crazy things that they do, and having interventions to deal with them. So that's one thing. But I guess I will tell you, I did look at his resume, because I have a copy of it here, and I know that he was born in Eufaula, Oklahoma. That sounds like a real, very desolate place. I never want to go. But the thing that excited me about him was that he graduated from Livingston. Well, we've got a whole bunch of people who I know who graduated from Livingston University, including my late brother, Kelly Crawl. And
That's right.
I used to talk about that with him all the time. And I will tell you, I saw that he taught band and music. I didn't know all this stuff. And so that was a revelation for me. But I need to tell you that back when Tom Bradley was running for governor, which is many years ago, I came up to a special meeting. It was a dinner at the Holiday Inn in Sacramento. And all of the political leaders in the state of California happened to have been there, including Willie Brown. Tom Bradley had to cancel at the last minute. I'm going to share this little information with you, because he couldn't get a flight out. This gentleman by the name of Hobart Brookins, never will forget him, M.E. Zion Bishop, sub for Tom Bradley. He was his pastor. And that brother was dynamic and a great orator, and I enjoyed listening to him. And I told Willie Brown, I said, that guy's got something on you, Willie. You got some competition. But that's not what I'm going to tell you about. I stayed at the Holiday Inn where this banquet was being held. And I met a young lady. I wasn't carousing. I just happened to meet her that evening. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, let's go to dinner. And I said, let's go over to the Red Lion. The Red Lion is off of Arden Way. And I knew that was decent enough. I didn't want to have any meal in the Holiday Inn. That wasn't good enough. So I got in my car and I drove her over there. And we were getting ready to sit down at a table, and the maitre d' directed me, and all of a sudden I looked over, and there was L. Benjamin Livingston. He said, come over here, come over here. I went over there and I sat with him, and I marveled at his technique. Now, this lady was with me, not him. I had her already. I had just about closed the sale. But then became involved with that. Every little modality that he had, he used to reinforce what I had already laid out. And by the time we had finished dinner, it was a smooth situation indeed. I just rubbed my hands together. I said, well, I don't have to do much more work. The work has been done. Men did it. So I never will forget that moment.
I did say this was a behind the curtains conversation. My bad.
Omega After Dark, huh?
Yeah, Omega After Dark. That's exactly what that was.
Oh my goodness.
But I've had a good relationship with him over time, and I'll tell you this. I've never mentioned this before because he told me to keep it secret. In 1985, I happened to have been an officer with the 12th District Keeper of Records and Seal, and the top two officers went incognito. They vanished. And so my mentor again, Fillmore Graham, said, Joe, you got to step up now. That's what do you mean? He said, you have to run for that. I said, Fillmore, I don't really want to do that. He said, you will. So I always listened to him, and I did. And so Ben called me one evening after he found out that I was doing that. He said, now, you know, I can't come out and support you, but I can give you some advice. He said, this is what I had to do. He said, go north. Go north. I said, well, that's kind of a strange thing. I said, now I knew South and Northern California, and I'm from Northern California. He said, no, I mean, way the Pacific Northwest, Washington, Oregon, and Alaska to get support. And I said, well, I'll think about that. Well, I didn't accept his advice fully. I should have. Had I done that, I would have had a better opportunity because Jewett Walker announced at the last minute against me, and he prevailed. But that was all right. I should always remember him because of what he did to try to help me. It didn't work out, but he tried. And often I would talk to him more than anybody else for guidance and advice, and he would give it to me unconditionally. And so he has a warm spot in my heart, even to this day.
Yeah. Thank you, Brother Johnson, for
You're
sharing.
welcome, sir.
Yeah, Brother Lewis, Brother Dow, Brother Ronan Hill, you guys want to chime in? Your experience with Brother Livingston? Frat brother?
Yeah, let me yield to 80. I'll yield to 80 and I'll go after him.
Well, I was introduced to the Livingston family in 1974, well before I knew anything about Omega Psi Phi. I had yet to even attend high school. So there's a picture that you guys will see later. But Harvey and I met when I was 13. He was 14. We played on a Pony League baseball team in Riverside called the Rangers. In fact, we were the only two black kids on the team, so it's easy to spot us. Easy to determine who the two of us are. And so, well before Omega Psi Phi, I met the family. They would sit in the bleachers and cheer us on. And I met Lawrence, so I met the entire Livingston family through their son playing baseball with him. And so we attended different high schools, but we would compete against each other. Harvey was a really good football player. I kind of focused on the baseball side, but I kind of knew Lawrence. Lawrence and I graduated in the same year. And a few years later, when I decided to attend college to play baseball, Cal State Fullerton had won the College World Series the previous year. So I was recruited there to play baseball. But the first person that I ran into that I knew on the campus of Cal State Fullerton was Harvey Lee Livingston.
Wow.
And so that was refreshing to me because I was the first to attend college. It was like a deer in headlights for me. So kind of took me in as a little brother. So they have always been. My wife and I, we consider ourselves family of the Livingston family. They've taken me in. Harv's been a brother to me even before we became fraternity brothers. But what I would say about Harvey, he was basically the architect behind the chartering of Cal State Fullerton Phi Lambda chapter. In 1980, November 3, 1980, that's when we were chartered. But Harv he transferred from Riverside. He attended Riverside City College. And I think he had a vision that he wanted to get a chapter started on the campus. So he selected a few good men.
Nicely put.
And so the first line, Cal State Fullerton was called the first four sons of the purple and gold persuasion. And on that line was Jeffrey Ward, Kevin Sims, Rodney Weber, and Michael Cropper. There was another brother, Craig J., who had crossed through Cal Poly Pomona. And then Tim Nichols came before me. Now, I couldn't go through the Lampados program at that time because I was playing baseball, so it was kind of springtime. They crossed, the first line was in the spring of 1980. And they kept teasing me like, you're not gonna pledge, you're not gonna pledge. And but one thing is we happened to be roommates. So I was a roommate with Harv, and I think Jeff was in the room at the time. So these guys were having sessions in our apartment at the what they call the University Village at that time. So I would listen in on the sessions with my door closed. So by the time I actually started my process, I knew poems and I knew how to, I could read, I could do the alphabet, Greek alphabet backwards. I mean, literally backwards. And so it kind of helped us when we actually went through our process, and I crossed in December 14, 1980. But like I said, Harv and I, we go way back even before Omega Psi Phi. And then one other thing of note, you know, Ebony publishes a 100 most influential Black men in America. And so, we, you know, like I said, never having any experience with the fraternity, any background, I didn't, he showed us the picture of his father when his father appeared in the Ebony magazine in 1982. So like I said, I'm gonna stop because, but you guys will see my picture. I was look a little goofy in that picture, but Harv and I are the only two in the pictures. You can tell who we are. But like I said, my relationship with the Livingstons go way back, 47 years now.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Brother Hill.
Hey, Brother Barnes, can I make one comment before you bring the first slide screen on? Because Brother Johnson, I appreciate your comment about everything that you said, but you also mentioned something about Eufaula, that very small town in Oklahoma, which I think probably at its height had maybe 2,000 people. But I will note this, that in Eufaula, that is the hometown of the Selman brothers, who all played at Oklahoma. All three of them played in the NFL. They lived on the same block that my father grew up in, Eufaula, Oklahoma. On that same block was J.C. Watts, who played at Oklahoma and became a congressman. And then two of my father's brothers played pro football. One was a starting safety for the Dallas Cowboys in the 60s. And the other one was the backup running back to Gale Sayers at the Bears, and then made all pro 1 year with the Saints. So if you think about this very small town, literally within a block and a half of each other, they produced 6 NFL players from this really a speck of a town in Oklahoma.
Awesome. Nice to know.
One more thing about Eufaula, because later on in life, I ended up moving back to Muskogee and coaching college football at the small college there in Macomb. We would go to Eufaula all the time. And I realized where my dad got his love for fishing and the water, because there's a beautiful Lake Eufaula right there in Eufaula, Oklahoma. And I never knew that until I went back.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I'll say this, one thing that shocked me when I was older, I found out my father used to be a hunter. He was not a hunter. I never knew him to be a hunter. And somehow the subject came up and he started talking about hunting. And I was like, well, what do you know about hunting? You've never been hunting. And he said, I was a subsistence hunter. So when we were growing up, we learned to go kill some rabbits. If we wanted meat on the table, we had to go get it. So, you know, so that was another part of his childhood that I didn't know until later in life as well.
Excellent. Brother Lewis.
Yeah. Good evening, brothers. You know, it's important that we invoke Brother Grant Livingston's name. And we heard Harvey say a few moments ago about, you know, every time you look up, he's on a plane. And we can't do this work. None of us on this Zoom could do this work without these women in our lives. So we can't get on this Zoom tonight without talking about Margaret Livingston. She made all this possible. You know, she was a mother. She was the first lady of the fraternity. Outstanding woman. Everybody loved her when she came around. Ben Livingston couldn't do anything he wanted to do without, you know, Margaret making sure that the home was taken care of. She's a professional woman. Jim Wilson says she was a whole lot smarter than her husband. That's what Jim Wilson would always say. Margaret is brilliant. She was way smarter than her husband. My wife, Vicky, loved Mrs. Livingston. We called her and talked to her quite a bit. But, you know, nobody could serve as Grand Basileus of this great fraternity without, you know, a wife being at home, taking care of home, and understanding and appreciating this is what this man do, is the sacrifice he's going to make to serve this organization. And I think, you know, I've done a good job about bringing my boys around to conclaves and district meetings just to meet these giants. You heard Lawrence and Harvey say moments ago, these giants. William Macmillan out of Russ College, this man was brilliant. Dr. Brannon, dentist, brilliant. Yeah, Moses Norman, brilliant. You couldn't meet these men being in Los Angeles. You had to go to the Grand Conclave to meet these brilliant giant men. You know, Judge Garnett, he's just a brilliant man. So we just thank Brother Livingston, man, for his service. And we thank Harvey and Lawrence and the family and Mrs. Livingston for allowing him to serve. We're going to invoke his name quite a bit over the next 38 weeks. He will be unequivocally on the Mount Rushmore in the 12th district. He's the first face on the Mount Rushmore here in the 12th district.
Yeah.
The only brother who climbed to the office of Grand Basileus, primarily because of his relationships in the 6th district and the 9th district and his traveling. Everybody knew him. Brother Coulon loved him. Brother Moses Norman loved him. He traveled and we respected him. He mentored everybody on the Zoom very cautiously, giving us guidance. I know when I had the thought of running for DR, Jim Wilson asked me to come out to his house, and Brother Livingston gave me great counsel, wise counsel. I followed his counsel. He's respected to this day. And as I said, we're going to invoke his name quite a bit over the next 38 weeks. If things work out the way we think it's going to work out, we'll have the second Grand Basileus in this fraternity from the 12th district, and primarily because we all stand on the shoulders of Brother Grant L. Benjamin Livingston. I yield back to you, Brother Barnes. Thank you for this opportunity.
Hey, thank you, Brother Lewis. Brother Dow.
Thank you, Brother Barnes. Good evening, everybody. I'm really just sitting back like a fly on the wall and just watching. You know, when we began this program, we were on the Zoom a little bit before, you know, we opened it up to the public. And Brother Hill came on and Lawrence was on, and the smiles that were on both of their faces, I mean, it was like just sitting back and watching two old friends who hadn't seen each other for a moment, but it was just like the last time they saw each other. You know, we sit around and we talk about friendship, which of course we know is essential to the soul, but actually being able to see it is something so special. And as I'm sitting back here listening about Brother Livingston, Brother Grand Livingston, and just how much of an amazing man he was, and just how much he poured into each one of the brothers on this line, I'm so thankful that I could even, you know, follow in his footsteps as a district representative. My brothers, this thing that we call Omega is absolutely special. Absolutely. And when we talk about we're the best of the best, we really are. You know, and listening to how great some of these men that the Livingstons had an opportunity to meet growing up, and how great their father was, and love, not just between sons and father, but really brother to brother, is absolutely dynamite. I'm thankful for the opportunity to be part of this panel tonight, and I'm just going to sit back, I'm going to be quiet, and I'm going to keep on listening.
There you go. Thank you, Brother DR. We're going to put some more slides back up, because this next part of this, what we want to talk about is really we're going to just share some photos the life. And Brother Harvey, I really appreciate you sending me the photo. I was trying to put them in such an order that it made sense as we flowed through this. So if you don't mind, Nick, we go to the next one. I called it, the first one is like a father pictorial discussion. These were some really old photos, and I said, okay, Harvey and Lawrence, you got to tell us what was going on here on these 4 photos.
Yeah, I mean, some of these photos, these are back in Arizona in a little bit of his younger day. The one to the right was when he was actually in college at Livingston, the one to the far right. And then the other 2 are in Arizona. And then there's a picture with his oldest son when he was there. Just a reminder that, obviously, as many of us are as Omega men, we're also fathers, as we try to steward and guide the next generation as well.
Yeah. Yeah, go to the next one, Nick. You guys are gonna have to narrate us through these.
Yeah. Well, the picture to the left, that is at my wedding to my beautiful bride, June Livingston, and my mother and father at our wedding.
Yeah.
And I celebrate 40 years of marriage this June, believe it or not. So that's what that is. Yeah. And then in the middle, that is when our father was elected Grand Basileus. That actually was a picture that appeared on the cover of the Oracle. And so there's my mother and father, obviously.
And
Lawrence.
a Harvey, also later on, I have that picture of the Oracle, cover of the Oracle later. So yeah.
Yeah. And then Lawrence, I'll let you comment on the other couple pictures with your family.
Well, there is my family on the bottom corner with Dad. And one of the great things about 1984, that Grand Conclave, is that at that conclave, I met my wife, and we're celebrating now 33 years of marriage. So we met at the Get Acquainted dance at that 1984 conclave. I invited her to that step show, and we've been together ever since. So that's my wife, Michelle Livingston. So I tell folks all the time, if not for Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, the best thing that ever happened to me would not have come along. So there she is right there.
Wow. Yeah.
And then the other pictures, I tell you, and she had a lot to do with, that's at the Charlotte Grand Conclave when Dad was receiving his 50-year pin. And I'm a college football coach, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to make it. And my wife said, you don't want to miss this. And so got down there special, and where he and I are sitting there together, that's right after he received his 50th year pin.
Awesome.
That's him and Mom at the same time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Next slide, Nick. I already know this one, so I'll let you guys tell everybody else this one.
Yeah, that's my father, his mother and father in the middle. That's my grandmother and grandfather, Annie Lee, and that's his father, L. Benjamin Livingston Sr. And then the 2 gentlemen on the left are my Uncle Andrew and Uncle Warren, the 2 that played pro football. Yeah. And then those are his sisters. By that time, he had two other brothers that had already passed, but that's just a picture of his family. And family meant quite a bit to him. Yeah. And he was always committed and was viewed very much as a mentor to many of the people in his family. The kind of person I remember people would come talk to him about advice, career advice, money advice, all kind of things. But his family meant quite a bit to him.
What was he, the oldest child?
He was the oldest of 11.
Oh,
so
wow.
he was the oldest of 11. And I used to always wonder, my grandfather only stood about 5'9", and my father was 6'4", so I used to always say it. But I realized my grandmother was about 6 feet tall, so the height came from the female side of the equation.
Wow. Awesome. All right, next one.
Well, that's a great picture of all 3 of us Omega men right there, and our next generation. That's Harvey's son, Trey, in the Chicago Bulls uniform. And those are my 2 sons, Lawrence Jr. and Theodore Howard. And all three of them now are college graduates. And
Awesome.
so all three of them, Trey went to Howard University, played soccer. And my youngest son, he just graduated just a few years ago, and he's very interested. He was getting ready to go online at Lane College for Omega, and then Corona hit and the line got disbanded. So I told him he's got to wait for grad chapter.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
That other picture at the bottom is at my father's funeral, and that's our older brother who also served in the Marines. So that's why he has that veterans flag that was from our father's casket. So anyways, that's what that picture is.
Great, super. Next.
Yeah, I mentioned this earlier. You know, a lot
Yeah.
of people don't know that my father got his original degree in music. He was a very prolific singer. And in Arizona, they had something they called the cowboy chorus, the cowboy ambassadors, and they traveled the world. And my father was a member of that chorus for several years, I think from like 61 to 66. And they would travel the country doing Christmas concerts, Easter concerts, etc. And again, he was a very serious musician. And in fact, my mother and father met at a Baptist musical retreat. My father was there to sing with his choir, and my mother played the piano, and she was there playing the piano with her choir out of Muskogee, Oklahoma. So music is how my mother and father met.
Right. I also, on this one, I put up in the upper right-hand corner just a professional experience that I took from the Grand Basileus pamphlet, again, just to show all of the careers there. Right. Like I said, that's 8 people's careers if you kind of try to put them all together. 8 different careers, but just wonderful breadth of experience there. Next one, Nick. Yeah, and thank you for this, Harvey. This again, these were you know, I was reading through this 1983 Man of the Year, and the precinct reporter. Where was this newspaper at? San Bernardino.
Yeah, so it was in the Inland Empire. It was the black newspaper for the Inland Empire. And that particular year, he was named as the Man of the Year for the Inland Empire. And just showing again, I think as many of the brothers on this phone, a Zoom call tonight, as well as many of the brothers we've met, you know, just brothers did a lot of work. And Omega was always the center of my father's life, but he did a lot of work around that. And this was just an example of the community honoring for a lot of the work he did in Riverside and San Bernardino.
Yeah. The other thing that grabbed my attention was right there in the middle, Black History Month and Ronald Reagan. And I saw that. Holy smokes.
Okay.
in that newspaper.
Yeah.
Next one. Next slide, Nick. This one I call Friends and Reflections. So it's, you know, again, we're going to be like really, really off script at this point with this next set of slides, because there's just really just some more photos. We could talk through them and just share some experiences here. Next slide, Nick. There's that picture, Ronan, we were talking about. You see?
Yeah, you can see I'm the one on the left and Harvey's to the right. But you can tell it's only the two black guys on the team. Matter of fact, Harvey, I don't know. Can you remember any of the other guys? I can't remember any of the other guys.
Yeah, that's very true. I remember one other guy named Wade. That's it. Just it in terms of that. But and then you also see some pictures of my father in the military. And then that picture to the right is when he got his PhD from Arizona State. So that was just when he got his doctorate before we moved to Riverside.
Awesome. Next one, Nick. There's that cover we talked about.
Yeah, with Brother Coulon.
Yeah, Brother Coulon.
One of the great brothers as well.
Brother Epps up there in the right.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Brother John.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, and it's funny as you think about Theta Pi, and I heard Brother Johnson earlier talk about Fillmore Graham, and he obviously was a phenomenal man and a phenomenal Omega man and was so kind and so dear to me. And Fillmore Graham actually was one of the founders of the Pi Rho chapter in Riverside, California, San Bernardino before he came north.
Wow.
So yeah, I actually was looking through one of the old oracles that my father had, I think from 1964, 65, and they had an article about the founding of Pi Rho chapter, and Fillmore Graham was one of the founders and one of the leaders of forming that chapter in Southern California.
Didn't know that. Yes, it's wonderful. Great. All right, next one, Nick. All right, everybody do not pay attention to the one on the left. We're gonna talk about Jerry Brown on the right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Well, you know, it's funny. My father was actually the president of the Black Area Political Action Committee, and so I remember he hosted a fundraising event for Governor Brown when he was running for governor at our house, and so that's so I remember that particular event that was at our house the first time he was running for governor, and he also held a second event for him. And the picture to the left, obviously, I think due to a lot of his work, both in Omega and outside, you know, you meet different celebrities, but that's a picture he and Jane Kennedy from back in the day. Yeah, in terms of that. Matter of fact, my mom used to tease my dad because Jane Kennedy and her husband did a movie. I can't remember. Lawrence, you probably remember what the name of that movie is, where there was a boxing scene.
Yes, it was blood and something. I can't remember now, but it was a boxing movie that was filmed. The climactic fight scene was filmed in San Bernardino at the National Orange Show. And my dad was an extra in that movie. And I think we watched it 2 or 3 times because he thought there were some other parts that he was in that might have made the cutting room floor. But when you see the final scenes of the fight, you can see him right behind Jane Kennedy cheering on in a
dashiki.
black and gold dashiki.
In a black and gold dashiki. But my mother teased the heck out of him because she said he spent the whole day out there, made $25, but he's just sitting there looking at Jane Kennedy all day.
Next slide, Dick. That was another interesting one. Thank you for sharing that one.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, I can't remember the exact year of this, but this is the night that Shaquille O'Neal crossed into the fraternity. My father was the one that did his initiation rites and brought him into the frat. So this was a picture taken right at the end of that ceremony.
Was this the one at the IHQ in 95?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, December 95. Yeah, December 95. That's what I thought. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That was a road trip for me. So brothers, we've made it to the end, and this has been one remarkable experience for me. Again, Harvey, Lawrence, Brother Lewis, everyone. I'm so happy to have been able to kind of moderate this. So we're gonna just go around for all of everyone that's on the panel, get to share some final words. Brother Harvey and Brother Lawrence, I want you two to be last. Again, I'll start with Brother Grand Lewis first.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Brother Barnes. Let me thank you, Brother Barnes. I remember you called me, man. I was taking Vicky to the doctor, and I was sitting in the parking lot. You said, man, I got this idea. How can I get in contact with the Livingston brothers? I said, I got the number for you right here. And, man, I told you then in that parking lot, I said, man, this is a brilliant idea to invoke the name of Brother Grand Livingston. And I knew once you talked to Harvey and Lawrence, man, they will really buy in. I thought this is a great program. I think this is going to be a beginning of some more opportunities. Maybe a Lewis Sears one, you know, maybe a Godfrey James one, maybe a Percy Steele one.
Yeah.
These all giants. For brothers who don't know, these men are giants. You know, Brother Joe Johnson can tell you these dudes are giants, man. Thomas McFadder, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
Brother Barnes, you might be on to something, man. But start with Benjamin Livingston, man. You get a thumbs up from me. Let's continue to invoke his name. Let's continue to invoke the First Lady, Margaret Livingston's name. We just want to thank Lawrence and Harvey and the family for allowing us just to kind of peek behind the curtain a little bit about the man.
Yeah.
Brother Grant, L. Benjamin Livingston, the 32nd Grand Basileus of the greatest fraternity on earth. Brother Barnes, I appreciate you, man, for this opportunity. I yield back to you.
Thank you. Brother Dow, you get to come off the wall again.
I want to hang out right here. No. Look, Brother Barnes, I'll certainly echo what Brother Grand Lewis just did. Thank you very much for putting this together. Lawrence and Harvey, my brothers, thank you so much for entertaining this and sharing a little bit more of a piece of your dad, with us. It was absolutely incredible. Brother Johnson, that story, I'm glad he kind of, made it good for you that evening. And Mark, always it's great to hear your perspective. And when Brother Barnes and I talked about this, I immediately said, "Look, you got to call Ronan," because when I was running for first vice DR, Ronan and I spent a lot of time on the road together, and he would share stories about when he was coming into the fraternity and his relationship with the Livingstons. And once I became a district representative, one of the things that I really focused on is the history of Omega. I was just texting back and forth as I was sitting here on the wall. The Basileus, James Henderson of Tau chapter, sent me a text, and he was talking about how he's just really enjoyed this last couple of days. And for me, Rededication Achievement Week is my favorite time of the year.
Me too.
Because it's an opportunity really to, in a dedicated way, really think about the greatness of Omega. I mean, we live it every day, but to really think about it and really go back and look at the history. And, we've got a real big focus on history out here with the lamp that we put on at each of the district meetings and district council meetings, where we try to make sure that we highlight the greatness of Omega, particularly out here in the 12th. And this was just perfect for me, absolutely perfect for me. And I want to thank you all for allowing me to be a part of it, and really for, again, sharing a part of your dad and your brother with us. So I'll yield back.
Thank you. Brother Grand Isles, you're up next. Still there? Oh, there he is.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I have a little technical difficulty here. Brother Barnes, I truly want to thank you for taking the time out to reach out to me to invite me to be a part of this. You have no idea what that means to me. It's a rare occasion that I'm invited to participate in these type forums, and I sincerely appreciate it. Sincerely, I mean, I'm sure there's been others that have where my name has been suggested, and they've gently overlooked, and that's okay. I mean, but I'm just saying, I want to just commend you for reaching and allowing me to be part of this. And I want to challenge everybody on the panel and those that are at home watching this. I want to challenge every one of you to, since we are in the month of the founding of this organization and we are focused on rededication, I want to challenge every one of you to rededicate this organization to its original purpose that those 3 undergraduates and their advisor founded this organization to do. And it was simple. They founded this organization to do one thing: to enhance the social and intellectual aspects of college life. And today, the college is no longer the womb of Omega. And until that changes, we dishonor the founders. We dishonor the men that went through Jim Crow, and we dishonor the leadership of the civil rights movement, which was overwhelmingly men of Omega and of the other Greek letter organizations. And until we return to those roots, we should stop claiming this is the biggest problem in America, because it is. The biggest problem in America today, in my not so humble opinion, is classism and elitism. And today, we are, in my opinion, a sad reflection of that classism and that elitism. Thank you again, my good brother. And I look forward to continuing the dialogue.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your perspective. Absolutely. Absolutely. Brother Hill.
Brother Barnes, I just want to thank you for putting this all together. Great job. Whoever helped you on your committee. I know Brother Thompson's been helping you behind the scenes. I want to also thank all the other panelists for just participating and taking time out from your day. And I just want to say thank you to Harvey and Lawrence for just allowing me to be a part of your family, even well beyond even before the fraternity. We became members of the fraternity, but you guys have always accepted me in the family. Love you guys, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Brother Hill. Brother Johnson.
Sir. Let's see.
You're not on mute. You good?
Yeah, I want to make sure. I always forget that sometimes. I just want to, first of all, make a comment about Fillmore Graham. When I met this guy, he had first come to Vallejo, and he told me he was at Riverside, California, because he was assigned to George Air Force Base as a nuclear engineer in the United States Air Force. And that started a friendship that was to last for almost 45 years. So I kind of knew what his background was, and I know more about Rosai at Tennessee State. He helped get that one together.
Tennessee State.
And we would often reminisce about that. And he asked me a question one time, and I'm going to kind of close it with this. He said, "Hey, Joe, do you think that the founders used the paddle on the bruhs?" I said, "Fillmore, I have no clue. I would say maybe Brother Love didn't, but I can't say I know. I didn't even want to hazard a guess." He was all into that one because I had told him I would never, ever use a paddle on anybody. It's not a part of my DNA. My mother and father never had to use it on me because I was extremely obedient to what they asked me not to do. Now, the rest of my siblings, they got it often, but I didn't, because I honored my mother and father, and I believed in what they were trying to teach us, or the way they were trying to teach us to live our lives and protect us. So I never did that.
Yeah.
That's a little swan song, but I want to say, Brother Keith, he has another month in office for approximately 6 weeks. That this is one of the things that he's doggone good at. We've had these before about the chapter where he got that particular presentation done at the last Achievement Week program we had. That was dynamic and very effective. And I leave you with this idea that was posited by one of our brothers, Don Aguilar, at our last meeting. He said, "You know what? Something that could really help our organization find its way out of trouble and promote it in an everlasting way would be that if each chapter had a reunion, a chapter reunion periodically, and invited all of those older brothers or younger brothers who you hardly ever see to show up for that. And we could just have a wonderful time reminiscing and creating more unity, greater unity within the chapter and within Omega Psi Phi. And I leave that thought with you."
Thank you, Brother Johnson.
Yeah.
All right, Brother Lawrence.
First of all, just want to thank everybody for honoring our father. I also want to say a special thanks to Brother Lewis for honoring our mother, because she was the most fantastic lady I've ever known. And you're right. There was no way my father could have done everything that he did without my mother right by his side. And I will say that on this, as Brother Isles is talking about the undergraduates, it was a very unique time when I joined Omega Psi Phi. Growing up as a son of a Q, I knew that that's what I was going to do. In fact, when I first got my first recruiting letter from Weber State in Utah, my mother actually told me, well, why don't you just throw that one away? Because I know you don't want to go to school in Utah. I said, no, I don't, but you don't throw any of these away. I'm going to fill it out, send it back in. And that ended up being the school ultimately that offered me a full ride scholarship to play football. And when I went on the recruiting trip, they were showing me the stadium and the facilities and all of those things. But the only thing I wanted to see is, were there enough Black young men on campus so that I could start a chapter of Omega Psi Phi? Answer was no. We were going to have to find something else. But the answer was yes. And I signed on the dotted line. And then my freshman year, I kind of went astray. Winter quarters, our semesters were broken into quarters instead of 2 semesters. And first quarter, I was fine. It was football season. Second quarter, the coaches weren't around. They were out recruiting. So I kind of lost my way there a little bit. And I'll never forget, my mother was on the phone pleading with me because she got all A's and B's when she was at Livingston. And she couldn't understand why my grades suffered the way they did. But it was kind of going in one ear and out the other. But my dad got on the phone, and I had to go to school for a whole year and then hope to come back to Riverside in the summertime to pledge to Sigma Eta chapter. And all he did was get on the phone and say, well, if you ain't got a 2.5, there's not a whole lot we can do. And that's all he needed to say. And that next semester or quarter, it was my best quarter academically I ever had. I think it was a 3.8. I got my GPA, came back home to Riverside to pledge. And it was a unique time at Sigma Eta because Harvey was in the process of getting Phi Lambda started at Fullerton and the Pomona chapter. It was really, Sigma Eta was about 2 or 3 chapters in one when we first started that. And ever since, and then I went and took it to Omicron Mu, and I think most of my Omicron Mu brothers that we stepped with and that we've been part of, they're on the call tonight. So I want to say hello to all of the brothers of Omicron Mu. And like Brother Johnson said, we had one of our members last year suddenly pass, and it caught us all by surprise. And we have been staying in touch more, and we are actually planning our 39th. We were going to wait till the 40th reunion, but next year in Charlotte at the Conclave, we're going to be celebrating 39 years.
Awesome.
Chapter. So yeah, absolutely. Chapters should get together, do more reunions, spend more time together. It's been a great experience. But I thank you all I've been looking forward to this for the last couple of weeks, and it has more than been a blessing to my heart. Thank you all.
Thank you, Brother Lawrence, and thank you for allowing us. I'm not going to say last but not least, but Brother Harvey.
Yeah, let me just say, first of all, obviously, as most Omega men are, obviously my father was a man of Christ and believed in Jesus Christ was his Lord and Savior. But so that clearly is the center of his life. But from a son's perspective, the Omega Psi Phi fraternity was the center, the left, the right, the top, the bottom of his life. It guided everything he did. I know later in life, he seemed to get a lot of enjoyment of being on the golf course, but I never saw him as happy as he was when he was among the brotherhood. It just filled his entire spirit, went to dwell with the brothers. And tonight is a good reminder of that for me.
Yeah.
And I hope all of us together, when we dwell together. And I will just say thank you on behalf of the Livingston family, my father and my mother and Brother Lewis. Again, your words were very touching. Thank you to all the brothers who joined tonight. I appreciate the investment of your time. Appreciate your commitment to helping to honor the love and legacy that my father had for this great fraternity of ours. So I'm very thankful to you, Brother Barnes, and the brothers of Theta Pi for putting this together. Brother DR, much respect and love to you for joining. Brother First Vice, again, I know my father was always proud of the kind of energy and commitment and zeal that you brought to your Omega journey. And you continue to represent all of us here in the 12th in ways that just go beyond measure. So thank you to all the brothers again who joined. We are humbled, we are thankful, but we are appreciative. And I just again would say much love and much appreciation from the Livingston family to all the good brothers.
Thank you. And as we close, I'll be remiss if I didn't also give a big thank you to my
and Brother
man.
Isles, I'm sorry, Brother Isles, second vice, much love to you for joining as well. I appreciate it. I know you and my father had a special relationship, and he believes in the undergraduate, he believes in this fraternity, and he believed in you. Sorry about that, Brother Barnes.
No, that's okay. Thank you. It was well said. Again, I was going to give a big thanks to my other buddy, the one who's running things behind the scenes, Brother Thompson. Thank you for getting things set up. I know Tech always has his own mind sometimes, but you'd always recovered and made things right for this presentation. And to all of you, again, thank you for just participating. I'm so filled right now with happiness and joy for having to go through this and see it, and it came out more than what I expected. Brother Harvey, thank you so much. Brother Lawrence, thank you so much. All the panelists, thank you. And for everyone else who got to witness this with us, I appreciate you taking your time. With that, good night. Long live the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. All right, good night.